That's the mystery. The man knew what he wanted and went out and got it. He walked into a jungle, came out the age of 21, and he's rich. The world is an oyster, but you don't crack it open on a mattress. You don't crack it open on a mattress. Wise words there. A Death of a Salesman, Arthur Miller. Willy Loman fighting against the dying of the light and the shadows of irrelevance. You know, classic stuff. But what's it doing here in this tiny little video about some old games that no one really cares about anymore? I mean, do I actually think that that passage of text is relevant? Am I trying, hand on heart, to create a comparison out of thin air between Alex Kidd and Willy Loman? Or am I just being a pretentious prick and trying to dazzle you, the viewer, with some highbrow dramatic jiu-jitsu? I'll leave that up to you, but I don't know, for some reason the story and saga of Alex Kidd, his rise and fall, always makes me think of Willy Loman. Perhaps I just overthink things a bit too much, but then that's why I'm here in the first place. In any case, it's time to start the show. Welcome to... Alex Kidd was Sega's flag bearer during a pretty dull period for the company, the Master System years. While Sega were doing gangbusters in the arcades back then, the consoles were, well, not as successful. The Master System got beaten the snot out of by Nintendo everywhere except most of Europe and some parts of South America, and the first couple of years of the Mega Drive didn't do much to change that either. There's a very clear distinction between the elfin Kidd and his blue-haired spiky successor. Sonic games were successful, Alex Kidd games not so much. A very clean break as well. There were no further Alex Kidd games made after Sonic's introduction. Most people don't really have particularly fond memories of the Kidd. Well, aside from him, of course, this being Bizarro World and all. Alex Kidd is still very fondly remembered in fair old England, where the Master System was a much bigger deal. Miracle World being the built-in game for the Master System 2, that oh so glorious cheapo alternative to the Mega Drive and a godsend to parents nationwide, did a lot to help there. If I come here to bury Alex Kidd, then a lot of people are going to have some very unkind words to say to me. I mean, I can see them forming up right now. They've all got hammers and pitchforks all at the ready. They're just waiting for me to call him Alex the Kidd, and they'll bash my brains out. But I do not come here today to bury Alex Kidd. I am merely a functionary, here to report and record the history of the series as I saw it. And then I will post the results on the world's largest video forum for the whole world to see. And point, and laugh, and mock. You know, sometimes it's better for a man to just walk away. But if you can't walk away, well, I guess that's when it's tough. It's often said that Alex Kidd was Sega's answer to Mario. That would seem to make sense given the time that he operated in. And yet Alex is hardly a follower of Mario. His games are entirely different, and so is his character design. The kid with the big ears has nothing whatsoever in common with the fat Italian plumber, and they even seem to appeal to different markets. Mario is a great deal more Western, while Alex is clearly somewhat Japanese. He's not exactly unique, mind you. There were plenty of tiny, elfish characters around back then. Alex Kidd is more like Sega's version of Link, only without any RPGs. And let's not get started on the incestuous relationship between Alex Kidd and Wonder Boy, also by Sega. Together they make up a comically extended family of games, rip-offs and developers that only somebody completely insane would dare touch. So let's skip all of that and dive into Alex's first, and some would say best game. Alex Kidd in Miracle World, released in 1986. Alex's quest for his long-lost brother is defined by many things: the massive fist he uses to wreck enemies, the vehicles he rides, and the games he plays. For some reason, everything in Redaxian seems to hang on a game of chance. Who on earth came up with the idea to use rock, paper, scissors, or jankin as it's known here? I mean, us regular people just use it to see who's going to run a shitty errand or whatever. For these people, it's literally a matter of life and death. The jankin element does add a soupçon of what is essentially dumb luck to the game, unless you cheat like hell, which is far from welcome. But this is one of the only major flaws of the game. Miracle World is, in general, a very decent platformer. It's very different to the more action-packed fare you got on the other side. Miracle World is a fair bit slower, with some occasional puzzle elements. Your fist isn't just good for enemies, it breaks blocks as well, and you often have to break blocks in a set way in order to make it through a gap, or just to get some extra coins. And you'll need all your wits about you in any case, because you die in one hit, and you only get 3 lives. You can continue, but you'll need a lot of cash in your pocket to actually do it. Miracle World is a pretty tough game, and I've never managed to finish it. Too tough? In general, no, but the dumb chance elements can be stupidly unfair in a game like this. Miracle World is best when it changes things up, which it does often. There's bike stages, pedicopter stages, the occasional maze, and general good quality platforming. It's hard to actually get bored with this game. The game's a classic, what can I say? Most people simply regard it as one of the few notable games to come out for the Master System, but in Europe, Miracle World, along with other games like the New Zealand Story, was a hugely influential title. You can see the mark of the kid in plenty of 16-bit Euro platformers. If you can't say anything else nice about the series, you can at least say that it got off to a flying start. Same as Wonder Boy, in a way. The first game was very solid, and that series went on to produce great title after great title. The same, however, cannot be said for Alex Kidd. In the coming years, Sega would struggle to reach the lofty heights of Miracle World again. The immediate follow-up to Miracle World was Alex Kidd The Lost Stars, released in the arcades in 1986, the Kidd's one and only outing away from the consoles. It's a platformer, but it's nothing at all like Miracle World. It's altogether more straightforward and Mario-esque, and the design is completely different to that of Miracle World. It's confusing, to be honest. The game itself is mainly notable for what happens when Alex gets hit. You may want to cover your ears for this one. That's a rather violent scream for a colourful, cutesy platformer, isn't it? Almost jolts you out of your chair. Aside from that, The Lost Stars is just about average in every respect. It's your typical arcade coin muncher. Nothing more, nothing less. The Master System version of the game, released in 1988, adds a time element. You get infinite lives, but whenever you get hit, you lose time. This works better than the regular free life system, but on the whole, I'm just not particularly big on this game. I find it very mediocre. Still, mediocre is better than absolute garbage. Oh, not that Alex Kidd wasn't subjected to one of those. One thing that really defines Alex Kidd as a series is Sega's complete inability to stick to an overriding theme or house style. It just goes all over the place in so many different directions. And they would also stick Alex Kidd into games that weren't originally designed around him, which is not necessarily a bad thing, but it needs to be done with care. When Nintendo did it with Mario, they chose a game that was a pretty solid platformer in its own right, Doki Doki Panic. The playability was still very much there, and the game ends up fitting into the Mario timeline quite comfortably. It's different, but not ludicrously so. When Sega did it with Alex Kidd, on the other hand, they chose an awful adventure game based on some rubbish TV show that bore absolutely no relation to Alex Kidd in any way, shape or form. Alex Kidd in High Tech World is the series nadir. Nothing about the game makes any sense whatsoever. It starts with a mind-numbing search around a Japanese feudal-themed house for pieces of a map that apparently leads to some arcade in the next town. Seriously, I mean, there's a phone right there. One has to wonder, why doesn't Alex just call a bloody cab? It's followed by the worst action segment in the series, and after that it just goes on and on and on. I wonder how any of this fits into the context of the series, and the answer is quite clear. It doesn't. A series needs certain things to be consistent in order to survive, especially when you're dealing with the thing that's apparently your mascot. Sega just, for whatever reason, didn't latch on to these basics. The reason for the existence of High Tech World is understandable, I suppose. The Master System wasn't doing particularly well at the time, and it appears as though Sega were just trying to throw anything at the wall to see what stuck. But this really wasn't the answer. High Tech World is the worst game in the series by far, an absolute dog of a title. These constant dalliances and flirtations are probably what ended up killing the series in the end. You know, it's a nice thing to have a good range and all, to have lots of variation, but there's a big difference between having that and people not knowing what the fuck to expect from the next Alex Kidd game, which, to be honest, I doubt at the time that anybody actually did. Next up was a Japanese-only BMX Trial game that simply existed to promote the console's paddle controller. It's so straightforward there's virtually nothing at all to say about it, but again we can see Sega trying to stick Alex's name on anything at all in a vain attempt to establish him as the company mascot. At least it's more faithful to the original vision than the past couple of games, I suppose. And that brings us to 1989, and the Kidd's one and only 16-bit outing. After years in the wilderness, Sega release Alex Kidd in the Enchanted Castle, a platformer that brings the series straight back to its roots. Big fists, helicopters, locks, bikes, and of course, janken. It's a welcome return. So who cares about the fact that this is the game that should have been released years ago? The Enchanted Castle is finally here. It's the one true sequel to Miracle World, and it's gonna knock your pretty little cotton socks off. And in doing so, it will establish Alex Kidd as the one true flag bearer for the new generation. There's just one problem. It's not very good. The trouble is, it was too late really. If Enchanted Castle came out a year after Miracle World, it wouldn't have been bad at all. It'd have been more of the same, of course, but people wouldn't have got tired of it. Coming out a whole 3 years after Miracle World, it just feels a bit like a retread. It's not exactly a great showcase for the Mega Drive either. It looks nice and all souped up with brand new 16-bit sheen, but aside from that it's just not all that different. And the game's worst elements are even highlighted more. Janken is bloody everywhere now, and you have to play it in order to get any freaking items. Unless you have a real hard-on for games of chance, you'll get bored of this after playing it about twice. And you still have to face off against bosses with Janken as well. I just do not get this obsession with Janken. I mean, I can picture the scene. Poor, stressed out programmers are working day and night trying to make this game good, and every so often a big, sweaty, clueless executive will come in, ask them all, what does success look like to you? And then he will boom, Janken is success! Janken is good! The game needs more Janken! And obviously there's no choice except to obey, or die. And what's up with the cover art, at least for the Western games? I mean, I don't usually do box art, but this is how Alex Kidd started. He couldn't be more Japanese if he tried. However, on the box of Enchanted Castle, he looks like an extra from Leave It to Bloody Beaver. Just, what are they playing at? They just couldn't let Alex Kidd be Alex Kidd. Look, here's the deal. At the heart of Enchanted Castle there still beats all the things that made Miracle World good. If you liked that, then you'll like some of this. There are quite a few secrets to be found as well, providing you've got a keen eye for them. But it just can't help being inferior by comparison, especially when the worst elements of the last games are the ones that completely hog the spotlight. Enchanted Castle is ultimately more than a little disappointing. Sega's weak launch in Japan, as well as the demise of the Master System in that country, meant that the Kidd's days were numbered. It was around about this time that Sega set about thinking up a new rival for Mario, with an eye focused on the West and appealing towards them, rather than continuing to fight a losing battle in Japan. And so we're nearing the end of the story. However, there's still time for one more game. Alex Kidd in Shinobi World was released for the Master System in 1990, coming out almost exclusively in Europe, with a limited American release. The game started out simply as a cute parody of Shinobi, a la Kid Dracula. It was to be called Shinobi Kid. It even featured subtle knocks at the competition. The first boss was even going to be Mario. Sort of. Somewhere along the line though, the decision was made to stick Alex Kidd in there. And in the end, the game stands up as a fond farewell to both the mascot and the system. It helps that Shinobi World, while again hardly related to the Kidd's original design, is the strongest game in the series. It has all the playability of regular Shinobi, along with some fantastic features, like turning yourself into a fireball. Multiple paths, plenty of secrets, and brilliant 8-bit graphics. What more could you want? Everything about Shinobi World is fun, and I highly recommend it. My only real problem with it is that it's so damn short, just 4 levels, weirdly one less than the game it's parodying. However, it does have an infinitely better ending. And that, as they say, was that. Alex Kidd was put out to pasture. I could put something grandiose here, really cap off the video with a flourish and nail that comparison I made at the beginning, but that's not really what happens to old mascots, is it? They pretty much just get shoved in a box. They even occasionally get brought out for nostalgia purposes. Alex made a memorable cameo on the Dreamcast title Sega Gaga, working in a video game store. Recently he's also made appearances in the excellent Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing series. So yeah, he's still surviving, even if it's only on the nostalgia circuit. But if you take a moment to think about it, then, well, that's where I am too, isn't it? Going through all these boxes of old memories, reviewing games nobody cares about, yammering about things no one plays anymore, trying to convince myself that what I do has any kind of value whatsoever. You know, after all the highways, the trains, the appointments, and the years, you end up worth more dead than alive. You end up worth more dead than alive. And with that said, it's time to end the video. So thanks for watching, and wherever you are, whoever you be, have a good one, take care, and I'll see you next time.